Okay, so good day to you, my dear students, in Philo 101. Once again, I'm Sean Xavier Alquilita, and I'm going to tackle the last topic for Chapter 5, which is on rights or human rights. So before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube page.
Yung SOGI bill na yan, yung SOGI bill na yan, oo, maaring napoproteksyonan nila yung LGBTQI. Pero nasasagasaan nila ang karapatan ng ibang tao.
Okay, nasasagasaan nilang karapatan ng ilang tao? Ano ang kahulugan ng karapatan? What is a human right? So let's go with the definition of the human rights or rights. A right is described as an entitlement or justified claim to a certain kind of positive and negative treatment from others, to support from others or non-interference from others. In other words, a right is something to which every individual in the community is morally permitted and for which that community is entitled to disrespect or compulsory remove anything that stands in the way of even a single individual getting it. Rights belong to individuals, and no organization has any rights not directly derived from those of its members as individuals. And just as an individual's rights cannot extend to where they will intrude on another individual's rights, similarly, the rights of any organization, whatever, must yield to those of a single individual, whether inside or outside the organization. Rights are those important conditions of social life without which no person can generally realize his best self. These are the essential conditions for health of both the individual and his society. It is only when people get and enjoy the rights that they can develop their personalities and contribute their best services to the society. So from here, we're going to elaborate the nature of rights as elaborated by a political philosopher, Harold Lasky. So here's the concept of the nature of rights based from his book, The Rights of Man. Okay, so number one, rights are the basic social conditions offered to the individual who is an indispensable member of the society. So, aside from here, rights enable man to fully enhance his personality to achieve his own self. In the words of Lasky, they are those social conditions without which no man can seek to be his best self. Rights are inherently social because they are never against a social welfare. The rights did not exist before the emergence of society. They are those fundamental necessities that which are very much social. So the fourth one says that the state plays the role of recognizing and protecting the rights by providing for the full maintenance and observance of the rights. That is why we have our law to ensure that the rights of every individual is being maintained and it never being violated. The next one is that the rights are never absolute. The nature and extent for the fulfillment of rights are relative. As long men endeavor for the upliftment and betterment of the conditions of life, rights continue to serve as means of satisfaction and gratification of individuals' needs. So there can be no rights which are absolute in nature, because absolute rights are a contradiction in terms. But for me, what is absolute in our rights is the right to life. Everyone has the right to live, no? And that is the most basic human rights for everyone. Next, number 6. Rights are dynamic in nature because the essence and contents of rights vary according to change in place, time, and conditions. The best example here is the legal rights. For example, the rights of the LGBTQI, the rights of the children, and so forth. That is why I'm going to elaborate that one later in the video, in the sample video that I will be going to show you. Okay, so these are the basic human rights. Number 1 here is the right to life, right not to be tortured or treated in an inhuman or degrading way, the right to be free from slavery or forced labor, the right to liberty, the right to a fair and speedy trial, so most especially in filing a case, or if the case is being filed against you, the right not to be punished for something which was not against the law when you did it. No? That's also another right. The right to respect for private and family life, home and correspondence. So the right for privacy, no? The right for private property. That is also another basic human right. And a violation of this, on the other hand, the communism, for Karl Marx, is that the communism is the total abolition of private property. So no one has the right, in communism, no one has the right to private property. So the rights are being violated there, no? Because we human beings have the right for privacy as well as the right to private property. Next, the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and even religion. So that is based on our constitution, that we have the right to the right of religion. We have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of speech. That is why it says here, there's freedom of expression, no? But always remember, guys, that the freedom of the press, the freedom of expression, and the freedom of speech, they have their own limits, because violation, if the rights of the other person is being violated just because of an excuse for freedom of expression, freedom of speech, that is already illegal. The best example here is libel, no? Okay, the next one is the right to freedom of assembly and association, because all of us are social beings, no? We live in a society wherein we can interact with one another. Of course, we have the right to marry and found a family. That is also a natural right that we have, an innate or based on the natural law and even the natural right that we have the right to reproduce, the right to build a family, to become a father, to educate the children. Just that's also another basic human right. Uh, the right not to be discriminated against in relation to any of the human rights listed here. Okay, so that is why there's a discrimination right. We right not to be discriminated. No, that's another basic human right. Um, the right to peaceful enjoyment of possessions. That is why, as I've already mentioned a while ago, the private property, no? The right to education. Always remember, guys, that education is not a privilege, it is a right. Um, it is based on, I have read from the draft, no, of the Constitution, because Philippines, for me, guys, Philippines needs to reform our constitution from unitary presidential, which is the present one, into federal parliamentary system. No, in the one of the drafts that I've read is the centrist Democratic Party draft. No, that one of the provisions there in the draft constitution for federal parliamentary system is the declaration of the principles and state policies, um, which is not being elaborated um, in the in the present 1987 constitution, but here in the draft constitution of centrist draft or centrist Democratic Party is that the that education is a right, not a privilege. That is one of the provisions in the Declaration of Principles and State Policy. So if you are a teacher, if you are an education student, if you, this for me this draft is good for those, is in favor for those who are students, for those who are working in an academe, because education is part of the state policies as mentioned in the draft constitution for federal parliamentary Philippines. The next one is the right to free elections. Okay, so we have the right to choose which member or person to be voted to serve the government, and lastly the abolition of death penalty, because that is violation of the right to life. Okay, next one. From here we can start to elaborate the kinds of rights. So here under are the different kinds of rights, namely, first one is the natural rights. So many researchers, philosophers, political philosophers, political scientists, and even politicians have faith in natural rights. They stated that people inherit several rights from nature. Before they came to live in society and state, they used to live in a state of nature. In it, they appreciated certain natural rights like the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to property. Natural rights are parts of human nature and reason. So these are the rights which are absolute. It is already inherent in us. These are the rights that are inalienable. No, it cannot be transferred or separated from our own selves. So therefore, these rights are already part in us. Political theory maintains that an individual enters into society with certain basic rights that no government can deny these rights. So here, a British philosopher and an empiricist, John Locke, being the most influential political philosophers of the modern period, argued that people have rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and property, that have a foundation independent of the laws of any particular society. John Locke claimed that men are naturally free and equal as part of the justification for understanding legitimate political government. As the result of the social contract where people in state of nature conditionally transfer some of their rights to the government in order to better ensure the stable, comfortable enjoyment of their lives, liberty, and property. Since governments exist by the consent of the people in order to protect the rights of the people and promote the public good. So that's the function of the government. So the function here of the government has to legislate laws to ensure that the rights of every individual are protected and to promote the public good. So from here, the governments that fail to do so can be resisted and replaced with new government. Okay, so the next kind of right is the moral rights. So moral rights are based on human consciousness. So they are supported by moral force of human mind. These are based on human sense of goodness and justice. These are not assisted by the force of law. So sense of goodness and public opinion are the sanctions behind moral rights. If any person disrupts any moral right, no legal action can be taken against him. So the state does not enforce these rights. Its courts do not recognize these rights. Moral rights include rules of good conduct, courtesy, and of moral behavior. So these stand for moral perfection of the people. So from here, as I told you, that what is moral is legal. But from here, from the third one, the legal rights, what is legal may not be necessarily moral. Okay? Because there are some laws, there are some legal rights that could also hamper or that could also trample the moral rights of others. The best example of the legal right is the LGBTQ rights. For example, that they have the right to marry, or to have a same-sex union, for example. But on the other hand, on the moral side, which is on the religious side, it is also against the natural law, because what is for man is for a woman in order to produce an offspring. But marriage, the nature of marriage is to produce a family, to create a family in order to produce an offspring. But here, it's supposed to violate the natural law. So that is one of the basic tenets of the legal rights that could be observed here, because sometimes legal rights can also hamper the moral rights or the natural rights. Anyway, I will show you the video later on how legal rights could also trample the rights of others. Okay? Okay, so the third one is the legal rights. So these are those rights which are accepted and enforced by the state. Any defilement of any legal right is punished by law. So these legal rights are legislated, by somebody, by a legislator, whether a senator or congressman, to be signed by a president or to be signed by the head of the state, no? And the law courts of the state enforce legal rights. So these rights can be enforced against individuals and also against the government. In this way, legal rights are different from moral rights. So that's what I've already elaborated a while ago. That a same-sex union could also hamper the natural law, which is the natural right, no? So that is why anything that is moral is legal, but what is legal may not be necessarily moral. Okay. So legal rights are equally available to all citizens. All citizens follow legal rights without any discrimination. So they can go to the courts for getting their legal rights enforced. Okay, so here's the comparison between natural rights and legal rights. Natural, so an entitlement that exists simply from being human, so it is based on inherent in our own nature. Legal rights are created. It is created by a legislator, no? It's legislated, it's upheld or altered by governments or legislation. Natural rights are equal, no? You and I have the same natural right, the right to life, the right to liberty, the right to property. No injustice in how rights are distributed. But in legal rights, it can be unequal. There are some situations and circumstances in which distribution of legal rights is unjust. LGBTQ, SOGI bill. So there are precepts in the SOGI bill that could also hamper the rights of the other people. Anyway, it will be elaborated in the next video. Okay, so here natural rights are inalienable. So moral rights cannot be taken away without your consent. However, legal rights can be taken away with or without your consent. Okay, for example, if you committed a crime and justice demands that you should be jailed for the crime, for the wrongdoing that you have done, no? And from this, your right to liberty can be taken away with or without your consent. So you will be jailed. You will be detained at least, no? So that's a legal right. Natural rights, natural rights are universal. So it is the same regardless of your location, no? Regardless of your location, regardless of your race, regardless of your belief, unconditionally, no? It is always the same, categorically the same. Legal rights are local. It can vary based on the jurisdiction, based on the culture. It is based on the social norms. So from here, next slide will be Byron Cristobal's discussion of Manila. So this is the new the city ordinance which has been approved recently or 2 weeks ago, no? Discussion of Manila LGBTQI Protection Ordinance in Manila City, which he claims that the ordinance is already a redundant or of the existing laws, no? Moreover, the city ordinance may interfere on the moral rights of other individuals. So from here, he also elaborated the example of a certain ordinance of Davao City where the right against discrimination applies to all, not only the LGBTQI community. So from here, I want you to watch the full video so that you can have ideas on how to make a reaction paper for your next assignment.
Itong pinaka-ating pinaling pag-uusapan. Kaya lang, mainit na ulo ko. Parang gusto ko uminom ng tubig, pero hindi ako makainom ng tubig. Eto na. LGBTQ, masaya na sa Maynila. Ayan ha. Oh, bakit? Masaya na sila. Oh. Ito na. Uulitin ko uli ha, para ho sa mga volleyball, para sa mga kulto. Uulitin ko uli ha. Hindi ho porket pinupuna natin ng isang politiko, ibig sabihin ho, masama na ho yung politiko. Okay? Hindi ho ibig sabihin gusto natin ng isang politiko ay hindi na ho natin pwedeng punahin yung kanyang ginagawa. Dahil ang mga politiko po ho ay hindi ho yan Diyos. Kaya nga minsan babansagan kayong kulto. Ano ho yung kulto? Sige lang ang paniniwala ninyo kahit minsan mali-mali na ang ginagawa, sige lang kayo ng sige. So ang akin, okay, kung meron mang politiko dyan, kahit ina-admire ko, kahit gusto ko, pag may ginawa siyang mali, dapat punahin. Okay? Kasi meron na naman dyan na nagsasabi, kaya daw pinupuna si Mayor Isko, pinupolitika. Anong pinupolitika? Hindi ko magets. Tatakbo ba siyang kakandidato ba siya sa 2022? Ang layo-layo pa nun. At feeling ko naman, tulad ng sinabi niya, magme-mayor at magme-mayor yan. So ulitin ko uli sa mga volleyball. Kung ako, bibigyan ng pagkakataong bumoto dyan sa Maynila na hindi naman pwede dahil di ako taga Maynila, iboboto ko pa rin dyan si Mayor Isko. Kasi siya pa lang sa tingin kong the best na tumakbo dyan. Ngunit datapot subalit, pag may mali, dapat hong punahin. O, Dante Asuncion, Boss Manat, pakibati naman yung misis kong si Edna. Hello po, Madam Edna. So ano ho ba ang sinabi niyang, o ano ho ba itong pinasa ng ni Mayor Isko? Okay? Ito ho yun. Ayan, okay. Ito po yung, ano man tawag niya dito, sandali ha, na-download ko ito eh. May tawag po sila dito eh. Wait lang. Okay? Ay, hindi prepared. Ay, nako. Basta may tawag ko sila dito, yung, nakalimutan ko na. Basta yung, wait lang ha, titingnan ko para sigurado. Wag ko kayong bibitaw. Okay? Ayun. Manila LGBTQI Protection Ordinance. Ayun, okay? Ito na pala, ito, may summary siya, pero wag na, ito na, may na-ready na natin eh. So, una ho, ano ho ba ibig sabihin niyang LGBTQI? Refers to, ayan, L as in lesbian, gay, a woman whose emotional, romantic, and sexual energy is generated towards other women, women to women. Gay, a man who is emotionally, sexually attracted to other men, men to men. Bisexual, pwede sa chick, pwede sa boy. Transgender, denoting or relating to a person whose self-identity does not conform. Wow, lalim naman yan. Ibig sabihin, no, trans, okay? Intersex, those who are naturally born and possess both male and female organs. O, may mga ganun daw, okay? Queer, those who are gender not conforming and do not want to be defined by any of the Ayaw niya ng definition. Ano gusto yung definition sa sarili niya? O, di sige. Okay, ano ngayon? So, ano ngayon ang ibig sabihin niyan? Anong itong prohibition? Ano ang pinagbabawal sa Maynila? Ito, isa-isahin natin, ha? Okay, ayan ho yun. Pero, ito ay sinamarize ho ng Rappler, which is, dinouble check ko naman po, sa pagkakataon na ito, tama naman ang kanilang summary. Pangit nga lang, joke. Pero tama naman po yung kanilang pag-summary, okay? In Perlalu, okay? So, number 1, ang sinasabi, yung sa 1 and yung A and B, pinagsama na ho yan, denying or limiting employment opportunities. Ibig sabihin, pagka bakla ka o LGBTQI ka, hindi ka pwedeng i-deny o i-limit ang employment opportunities. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Hindi ka pwedeng tanggihan kung ikaw ay LGBTQ. Okay? Ano ang problema ko dito? Tama naman siya. Ito lang ang problema dyan. Paano? Alam naman natin, yung iba dyan, not everyone, but yung iba dyan, feeling entitled. Nung nakita ito, aba, may karapatan na kami. Biglang hindi siya natanggap. Sasabihin niya, hindi ako natanggap kasi bakla ako. Hindi ako natanggap kasi tomboy ako. Hindi ako natanggap kasi transgender ako. Paano na? Diyari yung kumpanya. Okay? At the same time, doon sa letter, sa A naman, sa B yun eh. Sa A yung hindi ka pwedeng ma-promote. Dance when sack parts. First time ko mag-abot. Pasensya na, pakibati sa wife ko, Vicky O'Neill from West Sacramento, California. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo pwedeng tanggihan ng promotion ng isang tao, transfer, training, schooling, or other benefits ng isang LGBTQI dahil LGBTQI siya. So, hindi ka pwedeng tumanggi. Okay? Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, kasi ganito ka, bakla ka, o kaya lesbian ka, kaya hindi ka pwedeng tanggihan na ma-promote. Ang problema ko na naman dito uli ay ganito. What if hindi ka ma-promote dahil ayaw ka lang i-promote kasi hindi ka naman talaga magaling na empleyado. Hindi ka sinama sa training kasi hindi ka naman talaga karapat-dapat doon. Bigla kang nagreklamo, sinabi mo sa korte, bakla kasi ako kaya hindi ako ma-promote. Paano na? Idagdag na naman yung problema natin. Ang hirap, di ba? Mamaya papaliwanag ko, sasabihin nila, hindi naman, may ko-contest naman yan sa husgado. Oo nga, pero, di ba, ganyan nga yun nangyari dun sa, hindi lang ba pinapasok, ganito na kaagad. Halimbawa, number 2, denying access to public health programs. Eto na naman. Paano? Kunwari, hindi lang siya qualified. Biglang sasabihin na naman niya, kaya ako kasi bakla ako. O kaya lesbian ako, kaya hindi ako na-qualify. Demanda na naman siya. Paano na? Number 3, denying admission, expulsion, prevention from graduation, imposing of disciplinary action higher than customary against students. Okay? Ganito yan ha. Ina-explain ko sa inyo. Maganda yung purpose niya ni Mayor Isko na hindi ma-discriminate. Pero, very vague siya na paano kung gagamitin ito na dahilan lang ng isang LGBTQ na kaya kami hindi nakapasa. Okay? Kaya kami hindi nakagraduate dahil lesbian kami o kaya gay kami o kaya bakla kami. Oh. 'Di ba? Paano na? Alinaw dito, oh. Basahin nga natin mas malinaw para mas malinaw, okay? Basahin ko yung mismong dali. Ayan, oh. Ayan. Wait. Ayan, ito yung mismong denying admission to or expel, dismiss, or to prevent students from graduating or issues clearance to a person, student from educational institution on the basis of actual or perceived sexual orientation and gender identity expression, including imposition, disciplinary sanction higher than blah 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 penalties, restriction or prohibition due to the sexual orientation, gender identity or expression of such person. Ito nga wala siyang Sino ngayon na magdi-define, okay, na hindi siya qualified? Hindi malinaw. Paano kung sabihin lang niya, sandali, kaya ako hindi na dito dahil sinabihan ako nung na LGBTQ ako? Kaya yung kaya ako hindi dito makaano kasi sinabi nung professor, ganito ako. Paano na? Wala, hindi naman klaro dito. Yun ang problema ko. Jared the Observer, sa US, nagkagulo na doon dahil sa ganyang law. Tama Hindi malinaw Kasi yun nga yung paulit-ulit natin sinasabi, pwedeng gamitin itong batas na ito against doon sa mga institution. Kasi hindi naman malinaw Sana ko sinilagay dito. Unless, hindi ka talaga pasado, o hindi ka ganito, o hindi ka ganito. Walang ganun. Basta sinabi lang, hindi ka pwedeng i-deny kung ganito ka, ganito ka. Ito na, pang ilan na to, ha? Sandali. Ito, verbal or written insults including those posted on social media. Ako, wala akong problema dyan. Tama naman din yan, di ba? Yung, actually, sa totoo lang, redundant na ito Bakit? May libel naman Whether kahit anong gender ka. Okay? May libel naman. Bakit kailangan pa nito? Meron din naman yung defamation. Bakit kailangan pa nito? Pareho lang yun Kung laitin mo, whether LGBTQ, whether male, whether female, pag nilait mo isang tao, may defamation naman, meron namang libel, bakit pa may ganito? Number 4, revoking accreditation, recognition, and registration in educational institution, workplace, and communities. Ano ba ang sinabi niya ditong buo? Grabe, no? O ganun nga. Ulit-ulit lang. Denying goods or services. Pareho lang Kasi, hindi ko maintindihan Tingnan mo. Denying goods or services, imposing onerous or Basta, terms and condition. Ganun din naman, mapalalaki, mapababae. Pag dininay mo ng ganun, pwede kang idemanda. Ano ba yan? Paulit-ulit lang, redundant na itong batas na ito. Denying access to theaters, malls, spa, parlor, and other venues. Bakit? Pag lalaki ka ba, walang ganito? Pag dininay mo ba isang tao? Oh my golly. Sorry pero lalo na, actually, medyo sabit nga ito Isipin mo Denying access to theaters, malls. Paano? Grabe, oh. Basahin nyo yung buo. Nasa Twitter yan ni Mayor Isko eh. Hindi klaro na naman to. Refusing or failing to allow any person to avail of service of accommodation in theaters, malls, parlor, studios. Oh, ayan, oh, ito lahat. Rented out to offered a public for fee of the basis of actual perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. Provided the fact of giving inferior accommodation or service shall be considered as denial of access or use of such. Wala namang ganyan eh. Brewwooded, salamat po. Paano kung i-deny? Sabihin na naman, nung isang LGBTQ, dininay ako dito kasi ganito. Yung pala meron siyang hindi sinusunod na patakaran doon. O di problema na naman yun. Yun lang eh, kasi yun lang, wala. Period. Wala nang kasunod na unless hindi talaga siya sumunod sa patakaran ng establishment na yon, unless hindi niya sinunod ito. Kung sabihin lang niya, kaya ako deny kasi bakla ako, LGBTQ ako. Sakit sa bangs nito. Ewan ko ba? Kung sino man na nag-isip nito, taga Maynila. Physical and verbal harassment, unjust detention, and involuntary confinement. Kahit lalaki o babae, kahit anong pang gender niyan, talaga namang bawal yan. Physical and verbal harassment? Ano ba? Kailangan pa ba natin ng batas na to? Ito masama, number 10. O kaya letter K, dun sa organizing groups and activities which promote and incite discrimination against person on the basis of actual perceived sexual orientation and gender identity and expression which result in physical, psychological, and emotional violence and harm. Patay tayo dito. Ito tayo patay. Ito ang problema ko, ha? Ito ang problema ko sa batas na ito. Itong letter K. Paano kung may isang church o isang relihiyon na sa tingin nila masama o hindi maganda ang LGBTQ. Sa tingin nila, ulitin ko, hindi ko relihiyon niyang ganyan, okay? What if lang may ganyang relihiyon? Tapos, i-promote ngayon, sabihin ngayon ng isang relihiyon na ito, ang kabaklaan ay kasalanan. Kunwari lang hindi ko sinasabing ganyan ng pinaniniwalaan ko. Kunwari, sabihin ng isang relihiyon, o isang pastor o isang pare, ang kabaklaan ay kasalanan o kaya ang pagiging tomboy kasalanan. Tapos, biglang sabihin mo, nasaktan ako. Nagkaroon ako ng psychological, emotional harm. Na-harm ako emotionally. O papatak siya sa letter K. Ano yun? Hindi, bawal yun. Papatak siya dito sa batas na pinatupad nitong Maynila. Di ba? Medyo kaya nga, di ba paulit-ulit ko sinasabi, kahit noon pa, yung SOGI bill na yan, oo, maaring napoproteksyonan nila yung LGBTQ. Pero nasasagasaan nila ang karapatan ng ibang tao. Yan ang problema dito. Paano kung karapatan ng isang organisasyon na sa tingin nila mali ito? Yun ang paniniwala ng kanilang relihiyon. Paano na? Hindi sila pwedeng mag-promote? Ang dating na nun, discrimination na kaagad. This is not good. Letter I. Any act of discrimination or harassment against person or group of person based on actual perceived sex, paulit-ulit, which demeans dignity and self-respect. So paano pag pupunta na kagad sila doon sa barangay o saan man, sabihin nila, binastos ako kasi bakla ako, binastos ako kasi ganito ako. Di ba nga meron namang batas, kahit nga babae, binastos, pwede rin o kaya lalaki, binastos, pwede rin magdemanda. Meron na yan, bakit uulitin pa? This is not good. Actually, medyo nakakaano to ha, Una sa lahat, okay? Wag naman ho nating, eto kasi yung iba naman sa ito medyo extreme, sinasabihan naman natin. Eh baka kasi baklayan si Mayor Isko. Wag ganon. Ayoko yun. Hindi tama yung ganong klaseng banat, ha? Ulitin ko, hindi tama yung ganong banat. Wag natin na maging ad hominem tulad ng iba. Wag ganyan, mali yan, mga banateros. Ang tama ho punahin natin yung mali. Sa tingin ko, sa akin po sa akin lamang po ito. Sa akin lamang po, you may disagree if you want. I totally disagree with this, kung ano man tawag nila dito. Okay? Ordinance. Bakit? Una, redundant na ho siya. Pangalawa, yung karapatan ng ibang tao tinatamaan. Pangatlo, masyado ho siyang vague. Ibig sabihin, so anytime na magsabi isang tao na dinidiscriminate ako kasi bakla ako. Wala kasi siyang may wala siyang ibang mga clause. Sa totoo lang, pwedeng questionin to sa Supreme Court Sa tingin ko lang o kasang mangusgado. Di ako nagmamagaling, pero sa tingin ko pwedeng questionin Sasagasaan ito yung ibang karapatan ng ibang tao. So sa akin, sa tingin ko, mali ito. 3 rason kung bakit ko sinabing mali. Redundant. Pangalawa, ito po ay sumasagasa ng karapatan ng ibang tao. Okay? Pangatlo, masyado siyang vague, masyado siyang malawak. Hindi define kung ano, paano kung ganito? Paano kung ganito? Hindi ho ganon. Pangatlo yon. At pang-apat, kung bakit sa tingin ko mali ito, ang salitang letrang P. Priority. Mayor Isko, gusto kita, iboboto kita kung ikaw ang tumakbo sa Maynila, ngunit hindi ako botante ng Maynila. Ngunit, mas inuna pa natin to kaysa nagpasa tayo ng persona non grata sa CPP, NPA na siyang pumapatay sa ating mga kababayan. Mas inuna pa natin ito kaysa magpasa tayo na magpapainting ng laban para sa CPP, NPA na siyang pumapatay sa ating mga sundalo. Mayor Isko, where is your priority? Masyado namang seryoso yun. Hindi di ba ho? Wag ho natin ulitin ko Wala akong problema sa pamamalakan ni Mayor Isko. Nilinis niya lahat, ginandahan niya. Okay ako doon. Pero ito, problema ko itong batas na ito. Sabit to. Sorry mga kababayan, pero hindi ho ako blind supporter ni Mayor Isko. Sorry mga kababayan, hindi ako kulto. Hinahangaan ko si Mayor Isko, pero this time I think this is so wrong. Malinaw yung 4 na binigay ko sa inyong rason. Redundant na ho ito. Ito bibigyan ko kayo ng magandang ordinance na ginawa. Okay, wait lang. Nasaan na ba yun? Wala. Ito. Wait lang, tanggalin muna natin yan. Tanggalin muna natin si Mayor Isko. Ito yung magandang ginawa. Yan. Ano ho yan? Matagal nang ginawa sa Davao. Ano ho yun? Under the ordinance, people discriminating against individual because they're lesbian, and gay, lumad, Muslim, or disabilities or deformities can be criminally charged. Ito pa yung mas tama. Bakit? Discrimination, okay, against lesbian, gays, lumad, Muslim, disabilities, o yung may deformities, pwedeng, yan ang maganda. Bakit? Kasi lahat po protected. Hindi lang isang nakakainis Ay nako, nakakawalang gana. Sayang, hinahangaan ko pa naman itong Maynila. Sana naman, wag na magpatuloy ng ganito. Eto tinanong ko ito sa isang abogado. Tinanong ko, Ma'am, why do you think this is a political analyst from an expert? Ito, matagal na ito sa politika, isang abogado. Tinanong ko, Madam, why do you think Mayor Isko did this? Okay? Ito ang sagot niya. Hindi ko na sasabihin sa inyo kung sino ha. Babasahin ko na lang yung sagot niya. Sabi niya, he is playing to the crowd. Too populist. Populist. He misses the point of discrimination. Tama naman yung sinabi. Sabi yung abogadong na nakausap ko, sabi niya, maybe the motive is para mas makuha niya yung kumpiyansa ng ibang tao. Mas maraming masayahan sa kanya. Suportahan siya nationally. Hindi ko sinasabing yan ha. Sagot lang ho yan ng isang political analyst na tinanong ko na isang abogado. Ngayon sana naman hindi Mayor Isko. Sana naman ay hindi nyo ginagawa yun dahil lamang po sa ngalan ng politika. Kasi sa tingin ko wait lang. Sa tingin ko Mayor Isko, what you're doing in Manila, maganda na Perfect na. Hindi mo na kailangan, sa tingin ko, kung ito'y totoo ngunit ko sinasabing totoo, sinasabi ko lang na kung ito sa tingin mo, hindi na kailangan Mayor Isko. Sa tingin ko, you are doing very, 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 very well. Kahit hindi ka na maging populist o yung concern sa popularity.
For your second assignment for the semifinal period, you need to make an essay about your reaction from the 26-minute video of Byron Cristobal, or also known as Banatbay. The first paragraph, which is, you have to elaborate what are the provisions of the Manila LGBTQI Protection Ordinance of the City of Manila. Second paragraph, discuss Byron Cristobal's reaction of the said ordinance. And the third paragraph, you're going to explain how the Manila LGBTQI Protection Ordinance does not conform to A. Moral rights, B. Natural rights. So kindly explain your reaction from this video. So that's all for this chapter on about rights. So please don't forget to like and share and subscribe to my YouTube page for more videos. So once again, this is Sean Xavier Alquilita. Thank you very much.